When you're in a dire situation, you would be surprised how quickly you are able to come up with a solution to solve your problem, even though you don't have a lot of the tools available. I have seen some of the stuff that people will make in prison and it's absolutely insane. It might be a good idea to go to prison just to become more crafty. Well, maybe not a good idea. Hello Most Amazing Top 10 family, I'm your host Jade Arena and welcome back to Most Amazing Top 10. Today we are going to see what criminal MacGyvers of the world have been able to construct with limited resources with our list of top 10 complex tools that prisoners use to escape. If any of you at home are interested in checking out more Most Amazing Top 10 content, you should check us out on Instagram and Facebook and stick around until the end of the list because I'm going to be answering some more questions from my Instagram inbox. If you have any questions you want to ask me, hit me up through the gram. And without taking any longer, let's get into this list. Coming in at number 10, we have the Alcatraz prison escape. The ingenuity on this escape is actually impressive. In 1962, 3 men would become famous for being people to escape from the inescapable prison that is located out in the middle of the ocean. How did they do this? Well, let's move from the least complex tool to the most. First, they use a spoon to tunnel out of the prison. That alone shows you the willpower that these guys had to escape. Do you know how long it would take to dig out of a prison with a spoon? Then they used arts and craft supplies to make paper mache duplicates of themselves to leave them in their beds so the guards wouldn't know that they were gone. And finally, they had been stealing raincoats for months and crafted somewhere around 50 raincoats into a makeshift boat which they used to sail back to the mainland in the middle of the night. If you really want to be free, you gotta work for it. Coming in at number 9, we have a shotgun. The bummer about this one is you have a few inmates ruin it for everyone else. Now you can't even have bedposts in the prison because people are gonna use it to make some crazy weapon. In 1984, prisoners in a German prison got to crafting something insane. They used a bedpost, tape, match heads, a broken light bulb, and then some batteries to put the whole thing together. They came out holding someone hostage, but the guards were behind some bulletproof glass, so they were not convinced. So they fired a shot at them and nearly destroyed the glass. After this, the guards were quick to give in to the inmates and they were able to sneak out and jump into a car to make their escape. If there's anything you can learn from this, it's that you can't let prisoners nowadays have YouTube. If they could build that in 1984, they could build a rocket ship now with the help of a tutorial video. Coming in at number 8, we have a fake gun. Complexity comes in all shapes and sizes. Sometimes the tool might seem simple, but the construction of it and the use of it is complex. With this escape, we have John Dillinger escaping from prison in the 1930s using a fake gun. He was hoping he could use psychological warfare against the guards, and turns out it worked perfectly. Dillinger was able to get his hands on a piece of wood which he took back to his cell and started to carve it down into a makeshift gun. But the thing is, the gun would have never passed for anything legit. It looked like it just came out of a playset. So he snuck off with some shoe polish to paint the thing black, and then voila, he had himself a fake gun that could pass for the real thing. With this, he was able to disarm some of the guards and make a break for it. This being the second time he was able to break out of prison. Well, the FBI had about enough of him by this point, and they shot him down the next time they encountered him in a bank robbery a few months later. Coming in at number 7, we have a grappling hook. This is one of the most classic tools for breaking out of somewhere in a movie, but you never think it would work in real life. Well, it turns out it works perfectly in real life. In 1987, 2 prisoners in Ludwigsburg needed to find a way to sneak out of prison, so they started collecting anything that was long and sturdy. They got leather rope, extension rods, and metal poles from their bed frames to make the most complex low-tech grappling hooks they could ever have. They waited until they had time out in the yard, and then they used these new tools to climb over 2 walls and run off to freedom. Coming in at number 6, we have a Fedex Box and a van. I think this prison might have needed some more funding because they were using a Fedex Box to move laundry in and out of the prison. I feel like you should have something that isn't so easy to sneak into. This was in a prison in Western Germany, and an inmate who was locked up for smuggling drugs decided he would use his smuggling skills once again and smuggle himself out of prison. He jumped into a Fedex Box that got loaded into the back of a van, and then he was swiftly taken out of the prison. Once the driver was was far enough away and pulled over, the inmate made a break for it and was never caught again. Coming in at number 5, we have the World War II glider. During World War II, Colditz Prison was where many of the Allied men were held prisoner. It was supposed to be a prison that no one could escape from because the prison sat on the side of a cliff that dropped into a river. There was very little chance that someone could survive the fall. A group of officers got together and decided they would build a glider to fly off the side of the prison. There was a blind spot on the roof that would be the perfect spot to launch this, and things started to come together when one of the officers got their hands on an aircraft design book. They started collecting things from all over the prison to make this happen. But the spring before they were set to fly off with the glider, the war was over and the prisoners were freed. I put this one on the list because if all these things came together, it would have been absolutely crazy. Coming in at number 4, we have power tools. This escape is wild. Back in 2015, David Sweat and Richard Matt escaped from a maximum security prison in New York. How were they able to do it? They used power tools to cut through the wall of their cell, and they worked their way inside of the prison itself, like in between the walls and everything. Before they did this, they put dummies in their bed so no one knew they were missing. Then once they escaped through the hole in their cell, they broke through a brick wall and then once again used the power tools to cut through a 25-inch thick pipe and crawled through it. They were now in the sewers and navigated to the point where they got to a manhole and then cut through a lock on that bad boy. The whole thing needed elaborate knowledge of the prison, and the guards had to not hear them use the power tools. I have no idea how they pulled this off. Coming in at number 3, we have El Chapo's drug tunnel. This is one of the most famous escapes of all time. Joaquin Guzman Loera, also known as El Chapo, escaped from prison for the second time using a tunnel that was over a mile long and linked to the showers in the prison he was staying in. And this was no Shawshank tunnel. This thing had full lighting and electrical, a motorcycle on a track, and an elevator system. Coming in at number 2, we have Redwan Faid loves to put on a show. Redwan Faid decided that if he was going to break out of prison, he was going to do it in a way that had everyone talking. He was arrested in 2010 after a bank robbery went horribly wrong and someone was killed. While stewing in a prison cell, he decided that he was going to make a break for it by blowing up the wall to his prison cell with some explosives. Screw this sneaky approach. Faid wants everyone to know that he's not to be trifled with. Well, this didn't work at all, and you might have thought that the escape plan was not flamboyant enough, and that's why it didn't work. Because for his next escape plan, this dude would get his buddies to fly in on a helicopter and drop down on a rope ladder. The guards of the prison did not shoot the helicopter down because the pilot was a hostage and being forced to make the flight. And coming in at the number 1 spot, we have FBI business cards. If you have ever seen the movie Catch Me If You Can, you know all about Frank Abagnale. He is one of the most notorious conmen in American history. He was able to make off with millions of dollars, fool police, and in what might be his best con ever, talk his way out of prison. When Frank was arrested for the second time, after already escaping prison once, he was sent to processing. While being processed, there was one very big problem on the prison side. They didn't have any of his paperwork. Frank saw this as a golden opportunity and went on to explain to the processing officer that the reason they didn't have his paperwork was because he was actually a prison inspector and was posing as a prisoner to see if the prison was violating any human rights laws. He was staying at the prison for a week and would be on his way at the end. He backed up this by getting his buddy on the outside to forge FBI business cards, and all the guards were convinced. For the time that Frank spent in the jail, he was given the Club Med prison treatment, and at the end of his assignment, he just walked out the front door. Alright everyone, that is it for the list, and now I'm going to be answering some questions from my Instagram inbox. Derpy Landa wrote in and asked, "Do you poop?" And the answer is, of course I poop. In fact, I love pooping. It's one of my favorite things to do. I love just sitting there and pooping and looking on my phone and sucking in a bunch of social media. It's my favorite thing when my poop is like super clean, it slides out in like 2 seconds. Then I know my eating and nutrition is on point and I should feel good about myself. Anna Lind Law wrote in and asked, if you could have another pet, what would it be? Well, truth be told, I don't even have one pet right now, but if I had the time to get a pet, I think I would get like a Mastiff or a Pit Bull. I love dogs with big heads and they love to be hugged and snuggled and smooched, all that stuff. But also I've always wanted a pig for some reason. I don't know why, but I think they would be a great pet. And finally, Shadow Clone Jitsu124 wrote in and asked, who is your favorite DC character? This is a very hard pick for sure, but there is one rendition of the Flash that I always thought was super cool. In the comic book Kingdom Come, the Flashes have all morphed into one entity that is like constantly vibrating, and at one point he reaches in between dimensions. That Flash is super cool, but if not him, I would for sure go for Lobo. I love how he just doesn't care about anything, and he was spit out of heaven and hell. He's a legend. Alright everyone, that has been our list. Thank you all so much for tuning in. As always, I would love it if you could like, comment, subscribe, and hit the little notification bell. Until next time, I have been your host, Jade Arena, and keep sneaking out of prison, I guess? Bye.